So Cymatics recently released a Pharaoh sample pack, and to celebrate the launch, they decided to host a contest to find out who could make the best track using the samples from the pack. Now, the prizes are looking mighty fine if I do say so myself, so I decided to give it a try. But because this is not at all my first competition, and I definitely totally absolutely know what I'm doing, I thought I'd pose myself an extra challenge. Instead of just competing normally, I thought it would be neat if every drum, every synth, and every sound effect in the track would be made from samples from the beta pack. Now this video is not necessarily to show how I did it, but rather to prove that I actually did it, because I'm hoping that the judge listening to my track is also watching this. If that is the case, thank you very much. First, let's have a look at the unaltered samples. Mainly, these are the drums and the 808s, which are just dragged and dropped straight from the sample pack. Secondly, the two melody loops used in the track. Both of them are only altered slightly, being cut up in some places and having the parts reoriented. Lastly, for this category, there's the Rainmaker sound in the beginning, which leads into the first drum part. I placed the white noise riser that I used between the first and second category because it is altered slightly more than the previous samples, but still only uses a low-pass filter to filter out the tonal frequencies. In the second category, I placed all those samples that I used in combination with the Ableton Simpler, namely the first melody in the first part, as well as the arpeggiator also from the first part. But also two parts from the first drop are placed here in the list. Firstly, a cowbell perk supporting the rhythmic nature of the drop, as well as a few vocal chops that have been, chopped up and altered in pitch to fit the harmonics and also the rhythm of the main lead. Moving on to the third category, we find the most complex sounds. These are created either using the Pigment's granular engine or the Pigment's wavetable engine. First, there are a few remaining elements from the first part of the melody. These contain a secondary lead, as well as two pad-like sounds. Two of them use the granular engine, but one only uses the sampling feature without the granular effect. Furthermore, there are two bass synths which are both introduced in the first build-up. Both of them use the same sample in the Pigment's wavetable engine, but they use slightly different modulation settings as well as effect chains. Using an automated filter, a few sound effects are bounced out to a different track. They have then been chopped up to form the sound effects alternating with the main lead in the first drop. Another instance of Pigments uses a more plucky sample to create a rhythmic bubble sound. With a few more additional effects, this is also one of the samples used in the drop. The second drop also employs a few percussion, as well as vocal chop samples straight from the pack. The main lead from the second drop is once again made with the Pigment's built-in sampler using the granular engine. It's then further manipulated with a chain of saturation and distortion plugins. Leaving only one last Pigments patch, which is also the most complicated. Instead of using one of the samples from the pack, a sound effect made with one of the Pigments from earlier is re-imported into the wavetable engine. The modulation from Pigments is also used to make an alternating, more interesting sound for the second drop. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the song that I made for this contest.